Welcome back to the Introvert Wine Podcast. I imagine you're all dealing with the end of year rush, and I really do wish you well. We will wrap up this year and its events in the next episode, and this one will be focused on several topics that are dear to my heart and I wanted to explore further. And I'm really grateful to have on this episode Filipa Pato, who will join us in a bit and will introduce herself. We do have some history to go back to. During my master studies, I did one semester in Porto, and I got to know the Portuguese wines and winemaking a bit better. And previously, I know, like most of us, I was mainly focused on ports and I knew port wine better. But during my time in Portugal, I had to discover and, in a way, see the new wave, the new revolution of Portuguese wine, to see the different approach from this new wave of winemakers. And I was introduced to Filipa's wines as well. Well, funny enough, several years later, I joined ASI, the International Sommelier Association, where the president is William Wouters, who is Filipa's partner in crime and co-creates the wine with her. And over our multiple encounters with both of them, I think we've discussed so many times why they're making the wine the way they do, why they converted to biodynamic. Filipa explains biodynamics in a lot of interviews and podcasts, its meaning and why it is important to her in a way that it's simple but also not diminishing and very engaging. So I really love to discuss this topic with her. And I also wrote an article about regenerative viticulture. And I took Filipa as an example, though she, I think, was not quite aware at that time what is regenerative viticulture, and we spoke with her about the different approaches. So for you who maybe are not that deep into different wine growing, winemaking techniques, the key ones are conventional, organic, and biodynamic. So the conventional one is basically you have all the techniques, all the resources, everything you want to put in your soil, in your wine is up to you. Then there is organic, that is more limiting, and depending in what area of the world, what country you are in, it limits what you can put in your soil, what you can put in your wine, and some things are off limits. And then there is biodynamic, which in a way does not disagree with organic, but it has its own perception. It's more a philosophy versus a set of rules. So biodynamic sees the vineyard as part of the ecosystem, part of the nature, part of the biodiversity it is from, and it sees the vineyard as one of the parts of the mechanisms that brings this area into action. And then regenerative viticulture speaks about soil health, about different practices that you can adopt that are advised. So again, it's not limiting you, but rather than proposing what are the things you can use. Also with Filipa, we're going to speak about old wines because I really am fascinated about this topic, and we didn't have time to touch the topic of Franc de Pieds or ungrafted wines because that will be an episode of 3 hours if we did. We did speak about the recent appeal by the Académie du Vin to the UN about the non-contagious diseases, and specifically the appeal was focusing on wine as a heritage, as a cultural product versus just alcohol, and it was urging the UN not to translate wine as purely alcoholic, no safe dose beverage that will entail different warnings and labeling that we will have to put on the wine bottles. If you want to discover this topic in more detail, I urge you to listen and read Felicity Carter, who does a lot of research in this area, and listen to an episode by RNE Global, who did a recap after the UN meeting with different stakeholders. Or you can also study the UN document itself that's been released if you're into the details that much. Now I welcome you to listen to this episode. Really happy to be here today with the Introvert Wine Podcast, and I'm really excited to welcome Filipa Pato here, a famous winemaker from Bairrada, Portugal, obviously very well known for her work with Baga grape, biodynamic farming, and philosophy of authentic wines without makeup. I really love this line. And today I wanted to speak with Filipa on many topics that we actually discussed through a lot of years in different conversation that I really enjoyed is her approach to biodynamic winemaking. Also, the topic of working with old wines, and also the recent UN alcohol guidelines perspective that touched the wine a little bit. So let's dive into Filipa's journey and let her maybe briefly introduce herself, and then we'll start with my questions.
I'm Filipa Pato from Portugal, in a small region, Bairrada. Bairrada is a region very near to the Atlantic coast, so we have a very strong influence from the Atlantic. We are in between the Atlantic and the mountain Caramulo. We have a river Sertima that crosses the full region. So we are dry farmers also because we are benefiting from a fantastic climate. We have beautiful limestone soils from Jurassic inferior. The landscape is quite unique. We have nice slopes, a lot of morning foggy, like nice view, the clouds on the river. We see the vineyard, we see the mountain. So it's a quite beautiful scenery, and every day is different. The climate is beautiful, so we don't have snow, so we can keep the animals in the vineyard a full winter. We biodynamic farmers, so we see the vineyards not alone. We see it in a agroforest way. So we see the vineyards integrated in with the fig trees, olive trees, bushes from different species that we have, and it's incredible biodiversity that we have in Bairrada that gives the energy to the wine and makes these wines unique.
It's indeed a very unique region, and if our listeners haven't been there, I really recommend to go and visit. It's beautiful, and it's also not far from Porto. So if you fly into Porto and you drive south, it's really like an hour and a half journey. So it's easy to reach, and definitely a lot to see and a lot to taste there. Filipa, well, I know, and I hope the people that know a little bit the Portuguese wine history know Luís Pato as well. So you come from a family with a long winemaking tradition, but your approach is quite different. So can you tell us about maybe the moment or the period when you started exploring biodynamics, learning about it, and what actually drew you to start learning about biodynamics?
That's a good question. In fact, is a long answer also because my experience in wine, because of the family, we started since I was small, and even with my grandparents. My grandfather was also a pioneer. He was the first in the region to bottle his own wine and to really care about viticulture. He was a pioneer in this. And then my father was super important for Portugal and for Bairrada because he believed in Baga, and he put the region on the map, and he believed in authenticity already. So it was a very important. A lot of people in Bairrada was 30, 40 years ago, they were planting in other international grape varieties. And he was stubborn enough to keep this vision. He was pragmatic, and he developed the different signal vineyards, etc. That was very important to explain that it was possible to live from wine, because most of the people here, they don't live from wine only. They have the industrials, and wine is just part of their fun. I mean, it's not their professions 100%. But biodynamic farming was something I learned from traveling outside, because I met William in Belgium, and was William really who showed me biodynamic wines. I didn't have this contact before. I was in his wine bar and was very in Antwerp. He had a lot of biodynamic wines in the list. Was very known in the country, and a lot of importers passed by showing wines. So I had a chance to taste a lot of wines from all over the world. And thanks to him, I got to know these very special, authentic wines, biodynamic wines, that really touched my way of working, because I was already thinking more in vineyards and in winemaking for meeting him. And I always took care of the vineyards in a more natural way, bio way, but biodynamic way is another dimension. And I got to know a lot of producers thanks to William, because a lot of wines we tasted, I was so curious to see where they were original. So we went to Champagne. It was not so far. Belgium is very near to very good regions like Champagne, Burgundy, and we could visit a lot of weekends. We went to Champagne, we visit Marie Courtin, for example. She was super nice. She helped me to start biodynamic farming in our region because in Portugal it is so unusual. So we didn't have experience in Portugal in this biodynamic farming. Even now it's very little. So it was very interesting to meet these producers, quite inspiring. Like we went to Anne-Claude Leflèvre, Pauline Morachet. We visit Cos. We met Elisabetta Foradori. So we met a lot of people that really inspired our work in the vineyards that the result is nowadays. So it's like 20 years ago, these people really inspired me and William, for the decision we made in 2014 to move 100% from Belgium to Bairrada. And we live in the village. We realized to do biodynamic farming, we need to live in the vineyards. We need to follow the cycle. It's like educating your children. We cannot be far. So it's really important to be very close and to experiment a lot of things and observing a lot of things, feel the rhythm of nature and follow this cycle of nature. Our life is less boring because we have the rhythm of nature, and we travel the world to explain our wines. We receive a lot of people in our house. We show the wines, we show the vineyards first. It's something we realized was so important to show the work we were doing. So everybody who comes to visit, and you came already, and we went with me to the vineyards. It's really important to show the vineyards, to understand our difference comparing to the vineyards in Bordeaux, in Burgundy, in Loire, in Jura. We visit all these regions, and this is inspiring, but it makes us to understand how unique is our terroir, because it is incomparable with all the vineyards we visit in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you speak about biodynamics being an ecosystem, not just a list of, technical requirements that you need to follow and to do, because as you said, it's the whole universe around the vineyard. It's the forest, everything, the animals that live in the vineyard. So how does this influence, this approach of biodynamic, your daily decisions? Because you need to take into account so many factors, not only what type of grape you're growing or what the weather is today. Is it sunny? Is it not sunny? Because it's the whole ecosystem. How does it influence your daily decisions in the vineyard specifically?
Of course, it's thanks to observation and also teamwork. We have a very good team that we work together for many years. And with the experience we have during many years, the decision is made in a group. So I don't make the decision alone. I always ask team, because they also part of the ecosystem. Everybody is part of the ecosystem. It's not only the vines, the trees, the animals we have in the farms. So they have much more experience than me in pigs management or sheep management or donkey management, because you have all these animals, and they have a lot of experience because they are every day with them. And so it's important to make a decision together, and every season is a different reality, and we have to adapt to every parcel as well. So we have 37 parcels. Each parcel is one individual. So
it's a different
the advantage
baby.
we have, yes, and the advantage we have in Bairrada is that we have one grape that really reflects the terroir. So this is very unique, because we have Baga that transmits the terroir. Each parcel is unique, and is only one grape variety, that is Baga, who who really respects the terroir we have. And in this I compare our region very much with Burgundy and Piedmont, because we have one grape associated with one terroir. And this makes this region so unique as well, because the decision you make in each parcel will be different, because the ecosystem is different, and we analyze the experience from the previous years and adapt every year, make an evolution every year, experience new things. Sometimes the experience go well, sometimes not so well, but I give the risk also to the team, because we take the risk together is important. If you don't experiment, you don't advance. So it's very important to experiment in the vineyards and look to the past, look to the experience of the ancestors. And when you work with vineyards like we work, vineyards that many generations passed. So you see the trunks, we have sometimes 2 meters long. So it's pruning the many, many years. It's unbelievable to see a grape variety can survive so well in this region. So we have to respect this past and think in the future with this knowledge of the past and also experience of the last years and keep on experimenting the way we think is interesting. And we work biodynamic, so every year we learn also more about botanics. We have somebody helping us in botanics because we are in between two very important universities in Portugal. We are near Coimbra University, that is one of the oldest universities of the world. So they have enormous knowledge about botanics that we are lucky to have so near, and we started to have a collaboration. One of the students who really helped us because she's very connected also with biodynamic farming. So it was very important to have this person to connect us even stronger with the ecosystem. So we know that a lot of berries we thought was poison, we can eat them. So every time we go to the vineyards, we observe the nature, but also we eat a lot of things. So we eat sometimes the wild asparagus, sometimes the fennel or the small berries from Outern or the strawberry trees. We have a lot of bushes. We have a beautiful cover crop that we keep, like we have oregano, wild oregano that we use in our kitchen. We can make infusion. It's a very good infusion for the powder mildew. So this was something Marie Courtin told me. You have to see if you have oregano in your farm. When you came back to Bairrada, I went to look for it. I found it. I was like, oh my God, fantastic. Can use it for our sprays, our infusion. So nowadays we use technology also because these old vineyards, they completely
I've seen you have the
manual.
drones now. The drones.
Yes, yes. And the drones really help us to be more efficient and to use even more these infusions because in the past we had to use everything by hand, so spraying by hand. We still do a lot of things by hand, like pruning, hanging the vines, making all the canopy, all the work around the vines that the pigs cannot do. So it's still very manual, but we bought last year a drone to spray the vineyards because we can do it more efficiently and is less heavy for the team. So the team is more motivated to do better. And our team, they super young, so they are in generation of PlayStation. So it's interesting.
For them, it's
to
fun.
have,
It's a game.
so it was so easy for them to learn how to command a drone. So it was a very important evolution for us. A part of the animals to work the soil. The drones was a huge help for us because really puts us our team more motivated, and we spray every week without any pain for us, and it was a very good decision for us.
Speaking about Bairrada as a region suitable or not suitable for biodynamics, because you already mentioned that there is a lot of contrasts. The ocean is not far away, the mountains are also not far away. How does biodynamics interact with the terroir? Do you think it's easier or more complicated for Bairrada specifically because of the fogs as well, or it doesn't really influence your biodynamic approach?
I think the transition is more complicated, but the same way, because it's harder, makes you more focused. So makes you more focused, and after 5 years, the transition is very hard. You lose a lot of crop. But after 5 years, you see the vineyards are more in balance. So, and then the balance you get in the vineyards, they get like in a spa, they get more in balance, more in and then they get much more resistant also to the disease. So we feel, and especially when you work with local grape varieties, and in this, I think it's very important to work with Baga, because Baga is very much more resistant to the mildew than the other grapes that were introduced in the Bairrada in the last 30, 40 years. So I see even more disadvantage of working with Baga because with Baga, we don't have the pressure of the climate.
Do you feel there is still a lot of skepticism about biodynamics overall? Because when you speak about moon cycles and spraying and different cover crops, because you also come from scientific background, you're a chemical engineer, but you speak a lot about these things like ecosystem, intuition. Do you feel there is still a lot of not taking biodynamics seriously or having or seeing it as something not real or not scientific or not proven enough? Do you still face this when you speak about your wines?
I think it's a good question. I think it's been changing a lot in this. I think it's much more education. It's also a question of education for the client. And I think people, when they come to visit, and I think wine, the advantage of wine is that puts you in contact with the terroir, with the location. And when people come to visit, they realize the advantage of biodynamic farming. And I think if you want to learn about wine, is very interesting, is it crucial even
Mm-hmm.
to visit the vineyards and to visit the wine growers. And when you visit a biodynamic farmer, you understand the connection with the land. You understand that the advantage of biodynamic comparing to the conventional growers. Because regenerative viticulture that people speak a lot about now is probably easy to understand, but is integrated in
Mm-hmm.
biodynamic farming because biodynamic is a step further than regenerative viticulture. So I think it's a question of education, and that's one point is very interesting is that enoturism is improving, is increasing in the wine world. And I think thanks to enoturism, the client is more in touch with agriculture. And
Mm-hmm.
I think nowadays, because people live in the city, they not connect with the land anymore. That's why it's difficult for them to understand biodynamic. But when the moment they come to the land, come to go to the spa, the nature, in the weekend or in the free days, in the holidays, they understand the advantage of biodynamic farming. And also, they start to understand that the orange comes from a tree and the apple comes from a tree and is not only can get them from the tree, not only from the supermarket. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think people got away from the agriculture in general. I consider myself more a farmer than just a wine grower. I believe more because for me, the advantage of being wine grower is to live in the vineyards, is to live in the countryside, to have my own garden, to have my own vegetables, my own fruit, and to grow our family with healthy food. Because if you want to have this healthy food in the city, you need to have a huge salary. And even you don't have the pleasure of going to the tree and get the fruit from the tree. And this gives you, is what I was missing when I was living outside, when I was living in a city. I think it's a fantastic connection with nature that people from the city, they need to get back in contact because it's a purification of your body. And is important because nowadays most of people live in the city because the jobs are mainly in the city. They expect that 90% of the people will live in the city. I think it's very important to connect the people with the nature. And otherwise, the nature is going to be only animals and few people and a lot of tractors.
It's really curious to see your perspective on it because I remember my younger brother, who's never, I think, been to a village or countryside. I think when he was in the store, he didn't realize back then that carrots come from the ground or tomatoes grow on bushes and then you need to harvest them. Because if you only see them in supermarkets, you don't have this connection to the
No,
land. And that's missing, as you said, in a lot of ways, especially for wine being a purely agricultural product. People consuming it in the cities, sitting in fancy restaurants, as you said, they're missing this connection that it comes from a specific place, from the land. And I like the stake of wine tourism being also an educational tool because a lot of people, I agree with you, it's growing and it's really trendy for people finding something authentic, natural, real, visiting the vineyards, speaking with the winemakers. But you're completely right that it has this educational side of it that people discover and learn and maybe pay more attention, hopefully, to what they consume and why they consume this specific wine or any other product. I have $1 million question. In your personal opinion, do you think the future of wine lies in biodynamic?
I think is I hope more people do this way of viticulture biodynamic, but is of course difficult to be able to sell the wine at the right price to do all this work, because these kind of wines have to be more expensive, of course, to pay all this work, manual work, labor is higher, and especially when we work with centenary vineyards like we work. So the price of these wines have to be sold at a much higher price to be pay all this work behind. So that's why it's so important also to show the clients the way the work that you make out of it, because it's so much manual working biodynamic already, and then centenary vineyards, completely mechanizable vineyards. So it's very difficult, in fact, to be able to sell the wine at good price to pay all this work before. And to start from zero is not easy. We did that, but we did it together, me and William. And it's very hard to start from zero. When I look back, we're very happy with the result, with this result and this possibility, and growing the family, being the family in the vineyards, and have the life we have is thanks to a lot of dedication, great partners all over the world. We sell 90% export, so Portugal is just 10%, so it's a lot of travelings, and we receive a lot of people at home. And in the future, we're going to have a very nice shop where we're going to have a small wine bar with a nice music installation. Wine has to be fun, also educative, but fun. You know, I think we need to approach to the next generation, not be too technical, too classic. I think it's important to show the new generation that wine is fun, wine is culture, is nature, and the pure nature, because it's much better to walk through a vineyard that is purified than walking the vineyard that is conventional, full of pesticides and herbicides. So nowadays you have a good thing that people make much more physical sports, and walk and run and bicycle. Why not doing it in biodynamic farming, or is much more healthy for your body? Because if you do it in a conventional land, it's so poison, and then people think about poison is just alcohol. Is not only is a lot of pollution, is a lot of conventional farming that really is bad for your body. So let's think about purification of everything. The more vineyards biodynamic, the better it is. Vineyards, not only vineyards, agriculture in general. That's why I love to be certified the matter, because puts me in contact with all the farmers, not only viticulture. We are in contact with farmers who cultivate many different things, or olive oil, or cows, or vegetables, many things. So it's fantastic to have contact with all this, to be more open-minded, and to think not only in a small way. We are in a small spot, but we think global.
You already mentioned your centenary vineyards, and I think the first time I've seen the vineyards that are so old, I think that really changes the perception of how you speak and how you feel about wine heritage and connection to the land, and seeing that they are more than 100 years old. Can you explain a little bit about this vineyard and about the age and what makes them so special for you?
They beautiful, and we're very proud to have them. We started from zero. When I started to have these vineyards, was because these old people, 80 plus, they didn't have more energy to take care of them. And not always I had the information about the year of plantation. But one very special vineyard we took over was even abandoned because he could not take care of the vineyard the last 2 years. So we had to plant, not to replant, but we decided to recover the vineyard, make a gentle transition to biodynamic. And this vineyard was planted in 1864. It's amazing. It's incredible. But some other vineyards, we don't have an exact date of plantation. And in fact, these vineyards are not in a row. So they really vineyards, bush vines, planted in a very special old way of plantation. They call it chicken feet because it's better exposition to the sun. So it's not on a row, it's like in a
A little
diagonal
bit.
kind
Okay.
of shape, like a feet of a chicken. So it's a very specific way and impossible to mechanize. And in fact, in the regions like in center of Europe, these vineyards were common before phylloxera. And when phylloxera arrived, they replanted everything to be able to use the horse after 1880, more or less. Here in Bairrada, we were less affected by phylloxera, and also we were isolated. We didn't have the money to change. So people did the transition step by step, and some vineyards were not attached by phylloxera, they kept it. So it's very specific vineyards, and it's beautiful to see because it's really vineyards that it doesn't exist in center of Europe. So it's a really a unique heritage that we kept longer also because we had a dictator until very late. We had a dictator until 74. So it was no money to change. And nowadays we learn from the mistakes of the others, and the new generation is really proud to show these old vineyards, this Massal selection that is unique for the new plantations also because you didn't lose biodiversity.
When you work with the old vines from a viticulture, from the farming perspective, do you work with them differently? And at what way? Are you more gentle? Are you intervening less? Or are you intervening more in this sense because it's way older than, well, the average vines? Does it change your approach to working with old vines?
Especially for the pruning. Pruning is very special because it's three-dimensional. It's not in a row. It's not one dimension. It's three dimension. So we have the pruning of these vineyards is unique because it's vine per vine. So you speak with the vine. You understand which kind of pruning you should do. It's like being an architect of your vineyard, of each piece of the vineyard. So it's beautiful. It's one of the tasks I never lose is to prune these vineyards. In January, I'm always pruning these centenary vineyards together with the team because I think it's so fascinating to do this pruning because we respect the surf flow. We made a very good education about pruning the last 10 years with the team. And we understand that we can play so well with the team and also the connection about in between the vines and the trees prune in connection with the other trees. So it's a really architecture we can build in your vineyard. So this special vineyards is completely different than a vineyard planted in a line that we have to do pruning all equal. So it's in the old vineyards, each vine is individual. So this task is really completely different. Also, the hanging the vines with we use the willow. So we is a natural product that we source from the willows next to the rivers. We work before that preparation for that, and then we hang naturally vine stick by stick. So it's no plastic. So it's very respectful to the nature and to the plant because these willows are much more respectful to the cane than the plastic. Nowadays, the last 2-3 years in Bordeaux, you can see that again. But we are doing it for decades. We never changed it that, you know? So it's very curious to see that Bordeaux now is back doing it, that we never changed it to the plastic. So we keep on doing it. So it's a very interesting technique. Then also the green harvest is very important. So we do the I mean, not the green harvest, the green pruning. The green pruning we do in around beginning of May, when the first buds are coming, and we take the second buds and we clean the buds that are not interested from the old woods, so to have the energy for the right spots. So the green pruning is super crucial in my opinion. And then also the trailing system afterwards. We end the buds, and later on in June, in May, June, is always a lot of work from May, June, July, and then the grapes are in good conditions to have a good summer with sun protection and good aeration, that the humidity doesn't disturb. We made a very big evolution in these tasks to have beautiful grapes. In the cellar, if you ask me about the cellar, we very gentle, and in fact is no rule, no recipe in my opinion. We like to have some wall cluster because I think gives a nice energy in the wine in Baga. And so we destem one part, and we leave the wall cluster one part. So it depends more the vintage and the vineyard, etc. But we extract a little bit more in some than others. But we extract, and we don't make pump over. We do it by hand. We take the juice down and we put by hand up. So we vinify, separated all the plots. That's, I think, is very important to understand the locations. So we vinify parcel by parcel, small tanks, a lot of small tanks, because all small parcels, we have 37 parcels, so a lot of small parcels will reflect in different pots. It's like cooking with the pots in the kitchen.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of delicacy when you work with the old vines, both in viticulture and winemaking. And it seems like it's trendy now because everybody's speaking about old wines. There is old wines conference. People are trying to, well, find these vineyards, trying to preserve them, to keep for future generations, to study them as well, because there is not a lot of them, and not a lot of practices of how you actually work with them. And you've explained so many tasks that there are a lot of manual work also with these wines. So when later on you're speaking with the consumers or with the buyers about the old wines, what do you want to communicate to them about these wines? What do you feel is their value, or what is making them special when you're trying to explain all of this that you do to preserve, to farm, and then to make wine from them, to the people who will drink these wines?
You know, you when you open the bottle, you decant it, you smell the difference. Is the layers of taste of flavor is unique. So when you see the vineyards, you taste the wine, you understand why this wine is made from there. So it's a question of visiting and open the bottle. And Baga is very unique because when you work biodynamic, also the tannins are so elegant, so pure, that you can enjoy it young, you can enjoy it old. So it's quite unique to work this way, because I really feel that all the work we do in the vineyard reflects in the taste of the wine, because the wines we made in the beginning was not the same as now. So it's a good way to understand the work we're doing.
You've mentioned when you were speaking about the wine bar, which I'm really looking forward to visit once it's ready, that you want to show, especially to the younger generation, that wine is culture. Wine is fun, but also wine is culture. And I want to give, well, to our listeners a little bit of the context that this year, around September, there was a debate at the United Nations about the no safe dose consumption about wine and the cultural role of wine. And several winemakers, including Filipa and William, signed the petition by the International Wine Academy including many, many famous winemakers. So this appeal was to reinstate and to put attention to the wine as not purely just alcohol, but a cultural, a terroir product, also social product, and not to forget that labeling maybe it with the cancer warning or with the poison warning, like you said, that does not reflect the whole concept of what wine is in the human culture. What motivated you to be part of this letter, of this appeal? And also, in your perspective, how we should distinguish, if we need to, wine from other forms of alcohol when we speak about health and culture.
I mean, wine belongs to food, you know. We don't drink alcohol with food. I mean, you normally drink alcohol alone and in the discotheque, in a pub. So wine, you drink wine in a restaurant, at home with the food, is also a way to have a community, speak about the wine, speak about the region, about the people making it, about the culture, the history. So it's much more wine. It's much more also in terms of content. You know, you have more minerals. You have also antioxidant that is very good for your skin, for your health. So is completely different than just alcohol, and that's why I signed the letter with the group, and I believe is much more powerful to have a group opinion much stronger to make your voice stronger to the politicians and to the world than just alone. I mean, it's super important. And this I learned in the beginning. That's why we create groups like Baga Friends. And, you know, I think it's very important to act in the group. You're not alone, you are in the group. So it's a very important point, and I believe that this community needs to keep on fighting for that, because you cannot confuse wine with alcohol. It's completely different. And as I told you, you have also the fact that of land, taking care of land in the natural way. So it's beautiful. You have to produce wine, you need a lot of land. So you can purify hectares and hectares if you want. So you can have a beautiful impact in the world, to have less pollution in the world, to purify the soil, to purify the atmosphere. So it's a very important point, in my opinion, to have also not just wine and alcohol, but also biodynamic practice is very important for purifying the nature.
Because you mentioned that, well, there is a perception maybe among consumers about winemaking practices when you put some pesticides or herbicides in the soil, that you're creating some kind of poison in the soil. Do you feel that for them that transferred into wine having this also poisonous image because of how it was grown and how it was produced, that somehow these practices working in the land transferred in terms of the image of wine also not being, as you said, not pure, not fully transparent, that it also harmed a little bit the image of the wine that we have today?
That's why we decided to be certified, the matter, because I think you need to be clear, you need to be honest to your client, and if you're honest to your clients, they trust you. So it's important. In the beginning, I was doing biodynamic practice. I didn't think to certify, but then William was very objective in that as a consumer side, because he had a wine bar. So he understood that was very important to be certified also, because it's a certitude for your client. He was in front of the client for many years, and he understands that part. So for me, it was a very hard part, because for me, bureaucracy is a hard point. I prefer to be in the vineyards than in the office. But it helps us also to organize better, and I lose less time now. So it was difficult in the beginning, like in the vineyards, but now is a stronger point for us in terms of company, because we're much more organized than before. So, and this is a certitude for your clients. So we have a big control every year. We have to analyze the wine. You have to be clear to everybody. So we're really happy with this evolution in our winery and farming. I think this connection with animals really help us also to be better in our head.
There is a lot of talk about moderation and mindful consumption. And well, part of the UN decision, because I feel, well, it has been postponed until 2030, the labeling or no safe dose regulation. And I feel like a lot in the wine community, a lot of people feel that they have now a break and they don't need to do anything for another 5 years because they have this little pause to the next, say, meeting or decision making on this topic. But also, there were, especially in this letter as well from the International Wine Academy, there was a lot of concern that instead of trying to fight the labeling or change the labeling, the wine community needs to do more promotion of moderation and more mindful consumption. Do you believe that it's necessary? Do you believe it will help overall the image of wine versus alcoholic product to be a more cultural, a more heritage product?
I think so too, and I think the wine tourism can help a lot in that. That's why I was mentioned before. I think it's very important to have this contact with the nature, and I think in this wine has a strong position because people can visit the countryside, be in contact with nature, and not only in the city. So it's important for people understanding the real, to have to open their eyes to understand the real value of wine.
You've mentioned wine as a cultural product because you referred to wine as food. And well, wine has been part of the human culture and human, well, let's say meals and evenings with the family and the society overall for thousands of years. Do you feel that its role has changed in the modern society or evolved? Or you still believe that wine, as you said, is food and is purely associated with these moments of consumption?
I think is a lot of in the last 10 years the effect of wine bars is very interesting also to keep the new generation connected with wine. So, but is also culture in that because you have a lot of information. People get contact with with wine around 20, 25, 30. Of course, in the beginning, you don't have enough money to buy the wines you want. But I think the fact you have wine bars attracts the new generation, makes wine more fun, and not only connected with 2, 3 star Michelin that we cannot afford to go. You know, I think it's important to have wine in different layers of society, and wine is culture, of course. And this, you can visit also a lot of museums. It's super interesting. Like in Bairrada, we have a beautiful museum. You can visit. And then you see the heritage from the past, from the Phoenicians, Romans, and it's beautiful to see why wine was in all these centuries. So it cannot stop now. You know, it's going to be, of course, present for the next generations. You need is always a cycle, and I think people need to be informed, need to visit, to understand the real value of the vineyards, of the ecosystem, of the wine, and how the wine can keep also the people living in the village, for example, because it's important to keep this small village alive. And agriculture, including viticulture, is super crucial to have people that stay in this village. And we see more and more foreigners coming to visit to live in this small village, and I think it's beautiful, more than Portuguese. I don't understand. So is important more and more the value of living in contact with nature.
Nature. Yeah, that's a very interesting message, and I think it perfectly ties together the philosophy of respecting the nature of wine being heritage product and being in the culture. I have some final wrap-up questions. Do you have, if you would like to give one piece of advice to younger winemakers who are willing and who are looking to work in a more sustainable way, what would that be?
Is a good question. It's always difficult to give advice. I mean, because it's not easy to start from zero. And the lesson I learned is that two sometimes is three. So I think it's interesting to have two persons like me and William. We are very complementary. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't think it's going to be easy to do. And then he gives me energy to keep on doing it. And then we found solutions. And then, okay, but sometimes you live difficult periods. And if you are only one, it's very hard. I think if I was only one, I had desisted in halfway. I didn't go further. So the fact you are two, you and complementary, you help each other, and working by dynamic is also much more spiritual. You fight less. It's not easy to work with a couple, but I feel the fact we work also by dynamic, it helps us to be in a good mood all the time.
I'm gonna market biodynamics now, like making couples stay together longer. That's gonna be new way of promoting it. Is there one wine in your cellar that you think represents your vision best? Like the label, the bottle that you think is really showing what you believe in and what you stand for.
This is simple. The answer is simple. I mean, is Missão, of course. Missão Vineyard is a vineyard very special. The, the name of the vineyard is São Missão, and that's why we call it Nossa Missão. And
Mm,
this is so beautiful. This plot reflects this little spot of 6,000 square meter, beautiful east facing. We see the Caramulo mountain there, beautiful old vineyards, long trunks. All these things I explained before
mhm,
is there. We try to understand the subsoil in this vineyard also and other vineyards. In the future, we dig on the soil, we analyzing the soil, we really make all the effort possible to make this
mhm,
vineyard more and more special.
mhm.
We planted more bushes around. We planted strawberry trees around. We planted some lavender. We planted some rosemary. So we make like our little garden there.
It's always I find it always difficult to ask the winemakers to choose between all of their wines one that they love the most, because they always tell me, oh, they're like your babies, they're all special, you cannot love one more. But I love how you word, like, this is the one that is representing best, because it's a special wine, it's a special vineyard, and it's a special wine. I agree with you. And well, if you're enjoying a glass of wine these days, because we're recording end of November, so maybe we're more in the winter mood, the winter spirit now, what is the wine, not specifically yours, that you are enjoying in the evening, like looking back at the day or the work in the vineyards? What is in your glass?
Normally, end of the week, the wine we normally open is champagne
Ah, always champagne.
because it's like give you is a party to celebrate the end of the week, the effort we did, and I like really bubbles.
Yeah,
I love bubbles,
it's
and Bairrada
perfection.
in Portugal is the capital of bubbles, so we really like bubbles. So in a wine bar we creating, we're going to have our wines and also champagne from small growers working bio and biodynamic.
Yeah,
So
well,
we're going to have a selection really the way we think, the way we are. Champagne doesn't count, so we also
no,
like
I can
to
trust you
drink.
100% with choosing the champagne for sure. I'm so certain there'll be amazing bottles to share. Well, thank you so much, Filipa, for joining and
With the
sharing your
pleasure.
insights. I feel it was, well, excellent episode and I enjoyed a lot. And I would encourage our listeners to obviously to go and find Filipa and Williams wines and taste and define what's your favorite from them. And also follow Filipa's Instagram, because if you're having a bad day and you go to Filipa's Instagram and there are the images of the vineyards or pigs in the vineyards, that makes the whole day so much better for me, at least. But yes, again, thank you so much. This
It's
has
a
been
pleasure.
an amazing conversation and I really enjoyed, and I hope it was useful for the listeners as well.
Thank you.
Now you know at least how I choose my friends. So those who appreciate champagne as much as I do. Well, jokes aside, thank you very much for listening. I hope you understand why I cherish every moment I get to speak to Filipa about, well, practically any topic in viticulture and winemaking. Not only she's knowledgeable and obviously extremely happy to share her knowledge, I love her perspectives because they do differ from the majority of people I talk to, and she's extremely open to learn too, which I appreciate a lot. So, first of all, I hope it was useful for you in terms of overall wine knowledge, and maybe you got to understand and know more specific topics or details you're curious about. I invite you to follow Filipa. She's sharing a lot on Instagram about not only biodynamics and winemaking in Bairrada, but about winemaking overall. And I'm sure she's happy to answer any questions you might have. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Please like, rate this episode on any platform you're listening to it on, and we'll welcome back in a couple of weeks with some more exciting episodes. So for now, take care and share the love for wine. I'll see you soon.